going to go into a little more detail and also show you why we're doing them and where to put them in our forms. So I do have some people that I know are joining us who haven't done Tai Chi before, so I'm going to be a little more detailed in some of my descriptions. But when we are learning Tai Chi or practicing our Tai Chi, we need to be mindful. We need to be very focused on our movement, and we need to be aware of what we're moving and focused on how we're moving the parts of our body. So that's a big part of the warm-ups, and it's kind of a conditioning to get our joints and our body able to move in the way that we want to with Tai Chi. Now, I teach a lot about balance. We can't learn balance if we're out of balance. So the things that we're going to do, especially this first section where we're on our feet, we want to be very aware that we're not wobbling or losing our balance. If you're doing that, you cannot change the way your brain is coordinating your balance, and this is not going to do you any good. The lower body in particular, it's all of it, is so that we can develop better root. In Tai Chi, root is a big part or almost half of the equation, so we need to be able to be steady in our root, whether it's 2 legs on the floor or 1. And you can think of it as kind of a superior balance. That's why a lot of the things that I've learned about balance really fit well with what I learn and teach in Tai Chi. So we want to keep our mind calm and not come off our feet and be wobbly like this. That is not going to help us learn to balance. It's not going to help us to learn to root. So what we're going to cover, I want you to start very small. I'm going to make it a little bit larger so that you'll be able to see what I'm doing. I'm going to bring the leg up a little bit higher. But especially for beginners, those that haven't been in my class, these do not have to be large movements. And the idea is that I move one leg without disrupting my rooted leg, or the one that I am standing on. Okay? So we want to be very mindful. Now, balance is a complicated system in our brain, and it has 3 sources of input. One is the vestibular system, which is in your inner ear. That is where I have the greatest damage. Visually, we take in input, and proprioception. And that's all the nerves that run through all the joints and muscles of our body. So the brain gets information from these 3 sources about where your body is in space, and then it will make adaptations or changes to those postural muscles that are deep within your body to keep you from falling over. If you've ever had like a doll and try to stand them on 2 feet, it doesn't work. Our brain is always busy making these little adjustments so that we don't tip or fall over. And it's very common for something to happen that is going to affect one or more of these systems, and it's going to hurt our ability to balance. When people start to have cataracts or vision problems, they're going to have difficulty with visual input. Neuropathy will cause issues with the proprioceptive input. And then the inner ear is very, very common. Everybody starts to develop that at a certain age. Those start to die off, the cells that are responsible for determining your position in space. With me, it was all at once and very sudden. So what we want to do is get the most out of that input. And in Tai Chi, I'm going to start with the vision because that's actually the simplest. We keep our head level and we have what we call a soft focus, so that you're looking at a point kind of off into the distance, because our brain takes information in from the periphery of our vision, and it's picking up lines to help us orient ourselves. It doesn't hit your consciousness. It's not something that you're actually seeing, your brain feeding it to your visual system, but it's actually going to a different place in the brain. So we want that soft focus and picking up those lines in the edges of our visual field. Or you can look at a line in front of you. If it's long enough, then that is going to reach your periphery of your visual field. I always try to pick a room, and this is not a good one, I don't have something straight in front of me, where you can focus off into the distance. That also will help us with proprioception, because that will make us more aware of where our body is in space. So you really want to feel when we move our weight, when we pick up a leg. You want to feel the joints moving. You want to feel the weight weight shifting, your center getting over. And that awareness will actually help to increase the neural system sense of where we are in space. So that is an awareness. There's mindful, and awareness is a part of that. And then there is the consciously moving your body in a certain way. Now the vestibular, and I'm guessing at this one, I think how Tai Chi works for that is the slowness and the moving at a continuous pace, never stopping, those kind of things. That will help to increase the input from your visual system. Now, a lot of times when people walk, and this is pure balance, and I've done some research, and I love how they call it. They say it is like controlled falling. So if you watch people, when they walk, their upper body is coming forward even before their foot hits the ground. Okay? This is going to put a lot of G-forces on your hips and your knees and your ankles, but it's also very dangerous. When you're young, your mind can respond, and if you're forward, that foot gets to where it needs to be. But as we start to lose balance, if we're already coming forward and the body doesn't get the foot where it needs to be and lined up correctly, then you're going to wobble and you're going to fall. So in Tai Chi, we're going to be very conscious about centering our weight, holding our weight, putting our foot out, feeling, and then committing our weight onto the other leg. This works in martial arts because it gives you more power against an opponent. But this is how it works for balance, same thing. So when we are practicing, and we covered some of this in the other lessons, we want to rotate or push down the lower back, relax the spine or the waist, and bring the hips forward. We're going to keep those hips in a line. We want our head up as extended. This keeps our chin level and that soft focus so that we can pick up the lines in our visual field. We want to keep our shoulders down. So this will be a line between my shoulders, and it should be directly above my hips, but you orient the hips relative to the shoulders, not the other way when you're standing. And you want to expand the back and sink the chest, and keeping those arms relaxed and down. So we're going to practice from here how we shift our weight. In Tai Chi, we want to push our weight or pour our weight from one leg to the other. So what we would do is if I want to center over my left leg, I'm going to push through my right leg until I feel and I'm aware that I'm very centered here, and then bend the other knee. And this doesn't pull me off balance. I'm going to put the foot down, I'm going to come back. So what our brain likes to do is pull us. So it will pull from the left side and bring me over. And that kind of tends to put me at a little bit of a tilt, which is harder to maintain your balance. And a lot of times people will have this little upward pull like this. And that requires that your brain readjust your balance. It's better to stay centered or sinking and not do a lot of up and down. It's easier for your brain to keep you balanced or to keep you rooted. That's why we sink our breath. Big term in Tai Chi, sink, sink, sink. So when we're going to do these, I hope, or I want you to have something you can touch. We talked a little bit earlier about the 3 inputs. If you have something that you can touch, not waiting on it, not pushing down on it, but that you are aware of as you're touching it, your brain picks up in your proprioceptive sense 3 points. So I have my hand and I have my 2 feet when they're on the floor. We're going to go onto one leg, so it's even more important that you have this. But again, don't lean on it. It's just be aware of that feel that you're touching something. Anytime if somebody is losing their balance, it's very smart if you can get to something and just touch it. You don't want to wave your arms wildly. You want to stay calm, keep that calm mind so your brain can process what's going on, and don't wave your arms a lot, and touch something. Or if you don't have something to touch, I tell people, pretend. So you push down and it's like you're pretending that you're pushing onto a table, that you are aware of that. And this gives me 4 points. And that is even more stable than the 3. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start head up, shoulders down, expand the back, sink the chest, relax that waist forward. And I'm going to, holding here, if this is my center line, push through my right leg until I am centered over my left. And rather than pulling up from the upper body like this, just bend the knee of that right leg. Now I want you to rotate in that hip, just pushing it around. And reverse. Stay centered. Extend that leg down. I haven't moved my center off my left leg. And then push your center over to the right leg. Bend that left knee, rotating in the hip. And push it around in a circle. And then reverse and go in the opposite direction. Stay centered. Foot down, and this is my center line, and now I'm going to push through my right leg, centered between my feet. How we want to do this, this is new. You want to use your mind mindfully. It's like I'm holding the knot that's at the top of that thigh bone, and I am pushing in a circle like this. So I'm pushing my leg from the top. Your brain, first off, likes to pull from the knee. And the knee will pull the hip around. This is a very different way to move. We want to be moving from the hip, not the knee. This will keep our knees and hips and feet in a line, which is more stable, but also very protective of the joints. But you also don't want to pull in this hip. If you pull, it's going to kind of go a little bit wildly. So I always say it's kind of like stirring spaghetti. Stir a pot of spaghetti like this, it doesn't bunch up on the spoon, but if you rotate like this, it does. So we want to make this smooth, and we want to be very mindful that we're doing it in our hip joint. So let's do it again. Standing here, push. Here's my center line. Push through your right leg until you are centered over your left and bend the knee. Holding that thigh bone, I want you to rotate in that right hip and reverse. And I want you to be aware, it's happening to me, so it brought to my mind, you don't want to feel your ankle moving, your supporting ankle. You want this to be very firm, the whole foot on the ground. You can probably tell the difference if you're touching something. You feel more stable than if you take your hand off and then you feel that wall. Okay. So touching something gives that brain enough information that you stay rooted, and then it helps your brain to learn root. So let's now go do the other side. So this is I want to keep my hips level, and I want to push through that left leg until I am centered on the right leg. Bend the knee and rotate in that left hip. And reverse. Keeping everything as still as possible on your rooted side. Stay centered. Foot out. Push through the right leg, center between your feet. And where we would use this in the form is everywhere. But the easiest one to start with is opening or closing a foot. If you are doing young style and you are in brush knee left, you're going to do Tai Chi Walk, go to brush knee right. As I pivot from the last lesson, pivot this way and swing, I'm going to rotate in the left hip to line up my hip, knee, and toe. So that when I shift my weight, everything bends in a line when I commit my weight to it. And then I would straighten it by rotating it back. In the Soon style, let's see, I'll do it kind of at an angle here. Okay, so from open and close to single whip, I push my center over, and then I'm going to rotate in this hip to turn that leg as I swing my body to the corner. So I'm changing the direction of that bone. Right here in the thigh bone and the leg bone to keep those joints in a line. Now, we have another stage. I recommend beginners spend as much time as possible just doing these simple rotations like this to loosen that joint, condition that joint, but then we can take it up a level and we can... Now, if you're beginners, I want you to stop there. But we also need to develop a little bit of precision in our movement. We want to do the rotations to kind of condition and loosen the joint and get it flexible enough to do some other things with it. So we have done in our classes, if you come to my classes, the figure eights. So I'm going to turn this way. And what we want to do in a figure eight, same idea. I'm going to push through my right leg, get centered on my left, touching something, shoulders down, head up, keep my hips level under my shoulders, bend that knee, and I want to move my leg in a figure eight pattern. And try and do this without feeling the wobble or a difference in your rooted leg. So it's as if my knee is making a figure eight. I want to stay centered, put that foot down, move my center over, and I'll do it on this side, holding my alignment, bend that knee to bring that leg up, and rotating, making a figure eight, like this, and reverse. Stay centered, foot down, push through that right leg, center between your feet. This may not be clear on the video, and I've discussed this in class. We are not just moving this like this. Okay? It is changing direction. So as I turn, I'm going to be rotating, turning my foot. I got this from my China trip. And I was watching a little girl in the park over there, and she was practicing her letters or her forms for her writing, and she had like a big broom and dipping it in water and then painting on the concrete. So you had to be turning. It doesn't work as well with this, and I don't know how well you can see with this one, but it's as if I am turning and changing that leg direction as I make this figure eight, so that it is going in and out, and that bone is changing. Let's see if you can see it better from this side. It'll start back here and come up, and then it's going to change and come back. Okay, so I'm rotating that bone, changing its orientation in that hip socket. This is very important and valuable. If you look at the skeleton, gravity works against the skeleton, but everything has a certain direction if it's just hanging. A lot of times we talk about hanging from a thread at the top of your head so that the bones line up. And I put some little dots on this, but I don't know if you can see it. So there is a point where this is in a line. If I am moving from my knee, or even turning with just a simple rotation in the hip, once my knee reaches corner, say, it stops. It never fully rotates the top of that bone. So if that bone is never perfectly rotated, it's going to cause just a little bit of a tilt or misalignment in the knee, which is very damaging to our knees. So we need to be able to precisely turn that bone, the structure of the leg, and that is where we use these figure eights. So that's what we've been working on quite a bit. In our postures, we never move in straight lines anyway. It is like drawing curves or rotations along the floor, as if your foot was a brush. If we are in Young style and we are doing parting the wild horse's mane, as this leg comes out, it's going to rotate out and around to get behind an opponent's leg. It doesn't go from here to here. It has to rotate. So that's this figure eight and this idea of bringing it around and bringing it back in. even something like brush knee. So we have done brush knee here. We talked about, pivot, swing, rotate in the hip, but this other leg, as I come up, see my leg direction is going to be here, so I need to be able to turn it, rotate it out, and bring it forward. Okay, it doesn't go like this. So it has a little bit of a flow to it. A lot of times people get so caught up watching the hands of a master do Tai Chi or that upper body movement, they miss, the wonderful movement that goes on from the waist and in the legs. So I recommend you get a DVD if you have them for the masters, or look online and notice how beautifully their legs are always turning and rotating. Even on some steps that seem very simple, there is still a little bit of that rotation and arcing movement. Now the third phase that we want to go into is a yin-yang. So when going back to like a brush knee, when I want to open this foot, so I've come back and I want to open it, if you want to get extremely precise, like we talked about the neck and like we're going to go over in a minute, you do this in two. So I push back on the outside, forward on the inside, and rotate that leg like this. And then I would reverse to come straight. So I'm splitting it, but that is holding that bone where it needs to be, but changing its orientation relative to that hip socket. So we want to practice this. The figure eights get you loose, but in the form, you want to be able to rotate, open and close using two directions. In Soon style, brush knee, first step, as I want to bring the foot in. So coming in, I'm going to push back along the inside, forward on the outside. These are not straight lines, they kind of curve when I go like this. So I'm moving that thigh bone with that yin-yang rotation to orient my leg. And if I can do it, the more precise I get it, the better that alignment is and the less strain it's going to put on my knee. My knee will come together perfectly as I put the weight on it, and there won't be any strain when I pick up this foot. That knee stays comfortable. Don't want to damage that knee. So we want to practice that way when we're moving in the form. Now there are some places that it can make a huge difference. So if we're in Yang style and we are going to do diagonal flying, when I do this, and this, I have not heard anybody else mention this, but when I bring the leg in, so I come back and in, if I rotate using that yin-yang close to my body and then take the foot out, I'm more stable. So if I did it correctly and I'm here, and then I can finish the posture. If I do it incorrectly, and I'm here, and I bring it out, and I rotate out away from my body, I have to pull. I feel tense up in this shoulder to counterbalance me. So if you try this, and you come in, and you rotate, and go out, you find yourself much more stable. Everything is back here, so all that turn gives you the power into that rotation into the opponent. In Soon style, we would use this a lot when we do repulse the monkey to the rear. So if I am here, and I'm going to pivot forward, pivot back, I'm going to draw this leg in. I do it correctly, and I change that orientation of the leg as I step out, I'm going to be much more stable. Then if I am here and I come back and I go like this, again I feel pull and tension. The idea is just remain as relaxed and comfortable as you can. So I come back, bring the foot in, rotate, yin-yang rotation, step to the rear, then shifting my weight over. And I can do it much more smoothly. Let me step back a little bit. Got beyond my mark, maybe you couldn't see me. So the correct way, from here, I'm going to pivot and step back. I'm going to pivot, come up, bring the foot in. Yin-yang rotation, step behind me. And I can stay centered over this foot and this leg and push my center, turn, and follow step. This really helps you also in Fair Lady Works, the shuttles. A lot of these bigger steps, that's where I pay the most attention and make sure that I change the direction of that leg as close to my body as possible. If I change it out here, if I'm out here and change it, I feel tension and I can tell that I'm not doing it correctly. Now, we do this in 3 dimensions. So a lot of our steps are down here, but there are a lot of places in the form where we're going to need to add some dimensions. So if we are centered, we're now going to do this to the front. So I want your head up, soft focus, shoulders down, bring those hips under your shoulders. Push your center over. Now you don't have to bring your leg up as high as I'm going to. Make sure you're touching something, but you bend the knee and you're going to rotate in the front like this and reverse. Trying not to feel a strain on that rooted leg. That foot is solid. Your ankle isn't moving or wobbling. Foot down. Move your center over. And then bend. Keep those hips. I lost it. Keep your hips level. Bend it, come up, and rotate. And reverse. Stay centered. Foot down, then move your center over. We would use these in the young style especially, but in every style, because most of our stepping, it is not a pure step out. There is a little up and down to it as well. Sometimes you have to get over an opponent's foot, right? So you do need to be able to go up and down, but we would use this especially on separation kick, right? It has that little bit of a curve this way, out, and then bringing it a little bit back. Lotus kick is a big one, but in both styles, we use this in wave hands like clouds. So I'm going to move my center over, be centered, and I'm going to rotate this way in my leg out, rotate it this way down. Push my center over, and I'm going to rotate, bring the foot up, and then I'm going to rotate it down. So it's going like this. It too will get a little more complicated, but you start off making this turn this way, out and back. Now this one you also need to be able to do in figure eights, and that will help you to add some of that more greater detail. So if I am, and I saw before you couldn't see this real well. So I get centered, have my structure, and I'm going to rotate the figure eight, changing the direction of that leg as I go through this. And reverse. And again, you need to be able to do this, or you shouldn't do this, until you feel that you can stay stable on that rooted leg. That ankle does not wobble. So touch something. And then I want you to be centered. Have your structure or your alignment. Push your center over. And figure eight on this leg. Again, changing the direction of that bone by pushing it around at the hip. What I don't want you to do is try and move the knee. If I move the knee, I better do it this way. If I move the knee, I'm going to pull myself. I feel my shoulders have to move. I can't maintain that alignment. The pull or tug against my center is too great. So what we would then add would be yin-yang. Same idea as before on a horizontal, If you were doing this in wave hands like clouds, if I'm stepping out, I'm going to rotate the inside this way, outside this way, and then I'm going to reverse it to come over. And then as I pick up, I'm going to rotate in on the inside, down on the outside. So I'm moving my leg with this kind of rotation, a forward rotation. As you develop, when I step and I rotate and I go out, you will start to be able, this rotation this way will start to pull my center over so that you blend it. And then it isn't as obvious. But we need to be able to make sure that we're doing this and orienting this knee and hip. Instead of the knee getting there, it's aligned, but that hip is still facing just a tad forward. We need that hip to open up and be in line with that knee as I put my weight on it. Now our third dimension is to the side. So beginners come back. I want you to head up, shoulders down, expand the back, sink the chest, relax the waist down, bringing those hips under, and push your center over, and this will be to the side. So in case you can't see it, I'm going to rotate in the hip like this and reverse. Put the foot down, staying centered, move my center over, rotate and change the direction of that leg bone, and rotate on this, your left leg, and reverse. Stay centered, foot down, center between your feet. We will use this rotation in a lot of places. It'll be in walking, but I'm going to bring it up first when we come up to kick. So if I'm going to come up to do a kick, I pivot, bring my hips forward, and I want to rotate in the hip to bring my knee up. That is smoother and it doesn't pull against my center. If I do this and I'm leading with the knee, I tend to go like this. And you're going to go back a little bit and you can't get your leg as high. And I'm having trouble. I got a big microphone in there, in this pocket. So we want to bring the hips forward, rotate in the hip to bring a leg up. We're going to kick or rooster stands on one leg. But we use this every time we step. So if I'm doing brush knee and I'm here and I have to step forward, it has this rotation here. And again, this is also done that yin-yang like this. So my hip will go down as the front comes up, splitting that into two. But we do this in our Tai Chi Walks, and I do this with my balance classes because we all need to practice this walking. So I tell people, practice this once a day if you have balance problems or more. But even if you don't have balance problems, sometime when you're walking down a hall, you got a couple extra minutes. The idea is to be just mindful, paying attention, being aware, and moving everything precisely. So I have my alignment. Head up, shoulders down, bring those hips forward. I have a soft focus. I push through one leg, getting centered, and then I'm going to rotate in this hip, either a single rotation or split it in two. Put the heel down. Rotate the front of the leg down. I have not committed my weight. I can bring that foot back, so you don't want to go too far. Then push through my other leg until I am centered, stable over this one, feeling that my leg is in a line. Rotate, bring this foot forward, and rotate the foot down. We always want to step heel first. A lot of us don't. You watch a lot of people walk, they're going to put the ball of the foot down first or the whole foot down. In Tai Chi, we work very hard, and it is a hard habit to break. Heel,
to ball a foot, because people tend to catch their toes. This causes a lot of falls. Even on a smooth floor, but a little something on the floor catches your toe when you're going forward. So we want to be very aware with each step. We get centered, we're aligned, we're not committing our weight, and we step heel, ball, then push forward. It's a bit like skating, closer to skating than walking. And come forward. And I have a lot of students, myself included, for some reason, I guess because you can't see where you're going, our awareness goes up. We can be more aware of the movement when we walk backwards. Again, be very careful that you have something to hold on to if you need to. But push through that right leg, get centered, rotate back, rotate it down, push your center back, get centered, rotate through the hip, and when you go backwards, you put the ball of the foot down. So you go ball to heel. We want to make sure that we can develop this looseness, this flexibility. In the last lesson when I talked about pivot. So if I am here and I'm going to bring my waist, I'm going to push my waist down and forward to bring my shoulders back, I need a lot of flexibility through here. We need that strong, flexible qua. In Tai Chi, qua is about here to here. I need to be able to rotate that hip. Our hip is a ball and socket joint, so it's like a socket, and then the top of the thigh bone comes up into it. So when I push my waist, if I'm pushing my waist down here and this is my hip, I need to be able to rotate this hip socket down a little bit. But you can't do this until you have some flexibility. So if I'm here and I rotate, that's what makes this very smooth. And I can do that then without bumping myself up. So I can keep my head level if I can rotate, getting these hips open and loose and flexible. That's why this can be very important for us. Now, I'm going to take a break and I'm going to set up the room a little bit differently, and I'll be right back because you're going to need a chair. We're going to work on upper body next. Next, we're going to work on our neck, our chest, and our middle body or western waist. So we sit down for these. So I want you to have your seat, and we're going to line our shoulders up over our hips because we're seated, so we can't move our hips under our shoulders. You want to extend through the neck, head up, shoulders down, expand the back and sink the chest. So we're going to start with our neck. And we covered this the other day, but we want to push using our neck muscles to turn our head so we can keep our head on our center line. So if you're a beginner, you would start by pushing one way just on that opposite side. So if I'm going to look to the left, I'm going to push forward or in a little curve on the right side of my neck. And then I'm going to push through that left side to come to the front and push over, continuing on this side of the neck to push to the right side and push through the right side to come forward. Now, if you're more experienced, you're going to do these with that dual rotation or the two. So if I go to the left, I'm going to push forward on that right, back on the left, and then I'm going to reverse, push forward on the left, back on the right, and then continue that push forward on the left, back on the right, and change it. So let's do that about 3 times. So extending that neck up, holding your chin level. You don't have to go very far at first, and I want you to push to turn your head. Now you can take this a little further each time. A lot of times in class we'll say you go this far and then you add a little bit. So it's up to you, but you don't want to overstrain. You never want to feel that your chin is coming offline or that your head is getting pulled to the side. For me, that's very easy to feel. I know for normal people, it's not as you're not as aware of it as I would be. But you want that head up and pushing to get that head to go around. Next, we're going to work on our chest. So just like we did in our hips, we need to push. We don't want to pull here. So I want you to rotate and keep your elbows down and bring your arms up. So you're going to push through that chest and back in a circle. They're going to go together. So I'm going to push forward and back. So I'm going in this circle and I'm trying to move as deep in my torso as I can. And then I want you to reverse. And those that have been in my class understand alternate points. But now what we're going to do is they're going to move in opposite complementary directions. So if you would imagine like you have a bicycle, the pedals in the center of your chest. We've all heard Master Young Jun say one arm up, one arm down. But we're trying to get that movement in here. So one is at the top, one is at the bottom. And now they're going to rotate alternate points. And reverse. And relax. Most of the postures are going to use this alternate points. This one where we're pushing together, front and back, is more conditioning to develop that ability to push, to use the muscles correctly. Instead of a pull, if I pulled, it's going to bring me kind of like this. It's going to pull my body off its center. So we want to be able to stay centered and push like so that we can move smoothly. Now, alternate points, and I don't know how well you can see this, but this would be like a three-dimensional yin and yang in a tube, or if it was this whole piece across my chest, this axis across my chest. When we do this in alternate points, it's going to become more like an axle. And this is how we will get our arms to go up and down in a coordinated movement. And it will match up the arm movements instead of something like this that has no match. If I can move this internally, then I can coordinate that timing so that they move together, move as one. If you can bring it to your center and working this alternate points. Now that is hand strum salute, which is in this one when we're alternate points, this is hand strum salute. I have my hands out to show the dimension that we're working on, but the rotations are going this way. So hand strum salute, a chest rotation would come about like this. And that would be in the Jung style. In the Sun style, it's closer to the beginning of leisurely tie the coat. So if I am here, leisurely tie the coat, it is this movement right here where they need to be more coordinated. That is where it's this side rotation. Okay, alternate points. So let me have a seat. Now we're going to do that again. So I want you to come up, elbows down, head up, shoulders down, expand the back, sinking the chest a little bit. I want you to try and get a little bit deeper. So we're going to push in a rotation together without pulling us off our center, and reverse. And now alternate points. So put one on the top of your circle and one on the bottom, and we're going to rotate. Moving them together. One up as one goes down, one forward as the other goes back, and reverse. And again, we're trying to develop these, you could say, rotations in your torso. I remember one time Master Young, and this is what got me started on it, he said that our torso is kind of like clockworks. Like a clock has all these wheels and they're all interconnected. So now we're developing our chest, and then we're going to work on our middle body so that those rotations will then connect to your center rotating. These would be what we would call small waist turns. Ultimately, they will come from the lower back or the center of your body, but we have to develop or condition our torso to be able to start to feel those in our form. So just like our legs, we have to do this in all the dimensions. So now we're going to come to the front, and again, using your chest muscles, we're going to rotate like this. So I want your shoulders relaxed and your head up. That's the most important in this one. And we're going to push around, chest and back. And reverse. And now we're going to do alternate points, and you cannot look at your hands when you do this. It doesn't work. So one is on top, one is on bottom, and they're going to rotate like this. So starting here, you're going to push. And reverse. In this case, if this was oriented this way to the side, it would then be oriented this way, front and back, when I am doing this alternate points to the front. Okay, so it kind of runs forward and back through the body. So when you get to the middle, one is going to be in the front and one's going to kind of be behind it. You will ultimately bring this into where it is one movement, but we have to get them closer together before we can reach that point. Now, this fits into both forms in wave hands like clouds. In the Young style, it would be this rotation here would come up to about there. So this is a vertical rotation in the front, like this. Then you're going to change it and rotate this way. So that is going to be to the side. So it's just this point right here, and it's alternate points because one comes up as one is coming in and over. On the Soon style, in wave hands like clouds, which is a little easier, I come to the corner, and then I'm going to rotate. I'm not shifting my weight or changing the body direction here. That's what makes it's more simple. It's still not an easy movement necessarily, but I'm going to rotate this side down, this side up as I change my arms so that I'm getting this movement internally. And this is just one piece of that movement. When we move our arms, if we let our brain move our arms, and I rotate my arm, it will rotate usually from the wrist or all at once, and it will turn it like this. I'm going to do it more to the side, if you can see that. When we want to move in Tai Chi, we want to move from our center out. Ultimately here, but let's just think shoulder for here. So if I'm this way, and I want to rotate my arm, I'm going to turn my shoulder first, and then my elbow, and then my wrist. So it rotates out in a sequence. And this will get my arm turned more fully, and it will get that flowing movement, and it allows us to rotate and maneuver our arms around an opponent when you're using it as a martial art. But it's really helpful for balance because it gets the bulk of the movement as close to the center of your body as possible. So what we're doing here, let me turn to this side. If I'm doing this from the front and I'm doing it in my chest, I want to ultimately be able to take these movements, whether it's this one or it's this one in wave hands like clouds. I want to be able to move in the chest first. So I would be taking this rotation, shoulder, elbow, wrist. Chest, shoulder, elbow, wrist. So I'm adding to this shoulder, elbow, wrist here. And I'm not moving my arm like this so that it has a more fluid movement. It's always rotating in and out. And you can feel the movement coming down the arm. Spiraling, some would say. So it allows you to move your arm, but if you're doing it from the shoulder, it looks good, but you get it into the chest, and that is when you can get these greater rotations. Then as you move it down and you get it to your waist, you can feel it throughout the whole body. So we're conditioning so that we can develop that awareness and that feel, and then we can put it into our forms. Now our third dimension is a horizontal movement. So I want you to put your arms out. Don't come forward too much. Keep your shoulders down, head up, and I want you to rotate, and this is a push this way through the chest and the back. And reverse. And now alternate points. So one will be in the front, one will be in the back, and you're going to bring them in and out. So I'm moving through my chest. And reverse. So if you're thinking of an axle or a three-dimensional yin-yang, it would be oriented this way in my chest when I'm doing those horizontal rotations. Sometimes you have to develop a feel for this to get the concepts as clearly. And we want to be able to do this smoothly, and one is going out as one is coming back. It is sometimes easier, I found it easier to get this in the chest first. Ultimately, you're going to be doing it through that hip axis to bring that into your waist movement. But I guess because it's closer to your brain, I think it's easier for people to get the feel of the movement of a push in the chest and moving with extension instead of that contraction or pull. So that is the key here. If you're even just doing one arm at a time to begin with, the idea that it is helping you to understand or to feel that you're rotating, that you're turning the clockworks. You're turning that wheel in your torso, adding that to your arm movement, and initiating that movement as close to your center as possible. Now, where we would use the horizontal rotation, again, it's not pure rotation, but in both styles it would be brush knee. So if I'm in Yang style, this arm and even this one are coming in horizontally. So I'm rotating that chest and back to bring those arms around so that the arm goes like this. It doesn't go in a straight line like this. In the Sun style, I would be here and I would step. And again, I'm using my chest, shoulder, elbow, wrist. So it doesn't go like this. It comes from chest outward. It's down the arm movement. It is not the hand leading the arm. Okay, so we've got it here. Now, we've been working, especially in the evening classes, has just been conditioning, not trying to put it into the form so much yet, but we're going to work on this area here. And if you feel more comfortable, you can do these standing up. The idea is, though, that you don't want to pull against your knees. So I find it easier if I'm seated. You need to keep your abdomen relaxed. So you can't be tense and tight through here and be able to do these rotations. So I want you to bend your elbows, bring your arms up. So instead of moving in the chest, put your mind mindfully pushing through this center area of your torso and push your arms around. And reverse. And then alternate points. So one hand on top, one on bottom. And again, this is going to make it more into an axle. So I want you to push. And reverse. And relax for a minute. Now we're going to come to the front. So I want you to elbows down. Don't let your shoulders or your arms come out too far. You want them in front. And I want you to push in here. So I'm going to push this way. And reverse. And now alternate points. One on top, one on the bottom. Reverse. And relax. That's a little harder to do and to keep it moving than it is in the chest. So it's just going to take a little more time. And then we have this in the horizontal, or we're going to rotate this way, front to back, internally. So head up, shoulders down, and push. And reverse. One in front, one in back. And reverse. And relax. In a lot of Western exercise, and sometimes even I've seen in Tai Chi, people think that you need to develop strength, or what Master Yang Ji would call core strength, that you need to be tight in that abdomen, that supports your center, and that keeps you balanced. In Tai Chi, we want to do just the opposite. We want to be loose and be able to push our arms around instead of tight and letting them pull our movements around. Both support your core, but you have greater flexibility with your arm movements, and you're not going to pull yourself off balance. Sometimes if we're really tight here and we start moving, we tend to pull the whole body out, and that can sometimes lead to falls. A lot of times people will tense. You know, they lose their balance, they get very tense, and then their body or their brain isn't able to move them smoothly or quickly enough to get their feet under them so that they're not going to fall. So staying relaxed has a lot of benefits to balance, so therefore it has to be beneficial for our root. Now, in my balance class, and we have just started using this area through here, or trying to become aware of it. So in the my balance class, if we have done step back to single whip, when we go to fist under elbow, we've been coordinating. So I want to do the rotation of my hip this way to turn my foot at the same time that I rotate my shoulder arm down so that it is coordinated. And the idea is, if you're doing this, you should start to feel it right in here, this area that we have been working on for quite some time, so that you feel it there, you're aware of it, and then you can make that movement. You can coordinate and do those two movements from here. So if I am here, I'm going to coordinate that upper-lower rotation together. Back, and make that turn. And of course, that's going to be a lot of movement. Sometimes it's the same side hip and shoulder, other times it's crossbody. But that's why we're doing this, to develop or condition, so that then we can have that awareness and can start to put that in our forms. So that takes care of our lesson for today, and I hope everybody stays well until I see you next time.